Game 3 is especially interesting because, well, first of all, two very strong players are contesting it. Playing white is a guy called Ante Brkić from Croatia. Playing black is Emir Dizdarovic. Both these guys are graded about 2500. And the second point of interest is that white is going to adopt perhaps the most dangerous anti-Qd8 weapon that I know, namely the line where he puts his bishop out on c4 and puts his knight in on e5 very early. However, our move order is specifically designed to nullify this move. Nevertheless, in this particular game, Brkić decided to play knight e5 come what may. And as soon as white does this, your antennae should tell you that there's danger in the position. White does two very positive things with this move. I mean, the first and most obvious one is that he frees up the queen for action. The second point is that white is thinking about playing g4 and h4, embarrassing the bishop. Of course, this plan is much stronger when black's got a knight on f6, and quite correctly in this position. Dizdarovic played knight d7, and this is the move, of course, which diffuses white's hopes, and which gives our particular move order all its power. Because, of course, if white has to exchange off the aggressive knight on e5 for that knight on d7, then, of course, black is in a very reasonable position, very reasonable shape. So Brkić decided to play queen e2, but as soon as he does that, of course, black can revert to the other line with knight gf6, as well the queen on e2 is not the world's greatest square. Going back, of course, another line for black is simply to take off the knight on e5, and when white recaptures, black has a choice of decent moves. He can put his bishop out on b4, he can play his knight to e7 and then knight to d5. There are many moves, but in general, knight f6 is the simplest. Brkić retreated with bishop b3. Only now did black take the knight. D takes e5, and now Dizdarovic put his knight in on d5. So already a comfortable position for black. White seems to have wasted a couple of tempi putting his bishop on b3. Not sure he knew exactly what to do with it, apart from putting it on b3. And on b3, frankly, it seems completely ineffectual. Well, Brkić played bishop d2, and black played bishop b4, and now white played his rook to d1. And hereabouts, I think black starts getting slightly too ambitious, because he played his queen out to h4. By the way, white wins this game, so this is a cautionary tale as much as anything else. Black might still be okay after queen h4, but by far the simplest move is knight takes c3 here. And whether white recaptures with the pawn, after which black plays bishop a5, or whether he recaptures with the bishop, in which case we're happy to take the bishop off and simply play our queen out to a5, followed by castles. In either case, black has slightly the better game, there's no doubt about it. He has damaged white's pawn structure. If we go back to knight takes c3, b takes c3, bishop a5, there are obviously no significant discoveries with the bishop on d2. Probably white's got to settle for something like castles, and then black can do the same. And whilst there are no discoveries for the bishop on d2, you know, black is simply slightly better with pressure against white's pawn structure. So I don't know why Dizdarovic actually rejected that simple continuation. Perhaps he felt it was too simple, too easy for white to draw. But certainly after queen h4, from a position where black could have had an undisputed slight advantage, it's now simply unclear. And well, white decides to start playing extremely well now. Castles, bishop takes c3 was played. White played b takes c3, and again a continuation of the same ambitious strategy there. Castles on the queen side. As usual in these positions, it's all about the dark square bishop. That's the piece black doesn't have. So can white activate this piece significantly? Well, Brkić thinks he can, and he's very quick, in fact, to stick that bishop in on d6, which of course makes the black king less secure. Of course, black will have counterplay, but Dizdarovic is now thinking about targeting the square g2. Perhaps knight f4 is certainly on the cards here. But rook d4. is Burkitt's cold-blooded reply. Knight f4 is simply answered by queen f3, so f6 was Dizdarevic's move, and now white played f4, a move prepared, of course, by rook d4. Queen h4, g3, and now queen g4. Really, this is an exchange of queens black does not want in this position, which actually could not provide us with a more clear contrast to the last game we witnessed, where white's bishop was jammed in on b3 and couldn't get out. Well, of course, here white is only too ready after the exchange of queens to play c5, and rather than a crippled piece on b3, the bishop on b3 now starts to become a giant, because once black has played f6, he's loosened the defence of the pawn on e6. So far from being better here, black is now much worse, because he's got to think about his own weakened pawns. Not to mention the safety of his king, as Burkitt moves in with with rook a4. That bishop on d6 is jamming up the black rooks, and really they can't get out. a6, bishop c4. What a total contrast to the last game, as white is able to now funnel his pieces all the way into the attack. Knight d5. Rook takes a6. Bang. We really could have expected that. You know, black's pieces there, the rook on e8, the bishop on g4 doing nothing. Knight c7 was the miserable reply. Of course, if what black takes on a6, we go bishop takes a6 check, king to d7, rook to b7 check, king to c8, and now it's the choose your checkmate competition. I quite like rook e7. But all roads, of course, lead to Rome for white. So knight c7, of course, Dizdarevic knows that suddenly this game is lost. There's nothing he can do. a4 was played. Knight takes d6. E takes d6. And black resigned. And that's not a moment too soon. The only defence to rook takes b7 in this particular position is rook b7. And then white can simply play bishop a6 if he wants. Takes. Check. And that is mate as well. So a bit of a cautionary tale there for black. Not at all, they shouldn't at all dampen our enthusiasm for this system, because as we've seen, black could have improved quite easily on Dizdarevic's play. But it just shows you, in all positions in chess, you have to pay respect to the opponent. I think that's the main lesson in this game. Black didn't pay enough respect. Queen h4 was far too ambitious. He should have been more modest, and after his excessive ambition, he got severely punished. Very good game by Burkitt, though, from a certain point on.